Hey everyone, it's Corey from Fuel Your Photos, and today we are going to be talking about SEO for photographers in 2018. We're going to talk about what's changed, what stayed the same, and what you need to know to really be able to rank well in 2018. So this is a live video at the time of recording, and if you are watching live, you can ask questions in a couple of different ways. And you can either, if you're logged into YouTube or Google as you're watching on YouTube, you can ask in the live stream chat right there. It's on the right. If you're on desktop, it should be underneath if you're on mobile. And if you're in the Facebook group, if you're in the Fuel Your Photos Facebook group, I have a thread there where you can ask questions. Caleb will be sending me over those, and I'll check those every so often as I go through the presentation today. Now, this is not going to be an extraordinarily polished presentation. I don't have a bunch of slides. I have an outline that I'm following. I have some things that I'd like to talk about, and I may show some examples on my screen as we go. Just kind of keep this informal, and if you have questions, be sure to ask. So let's go ahead and get started. If you don't know me, my name's Corey, and I am the founder of Fuel Your Photos, and it's a community of photographers. Well, kind of started as a community of photographers, especially on Facebook and the Facebook group, which if you're not in it, by the way, make sure you join that. Just go to Facebook and search for Fuel Your Photos, and you should be able to find our group. We have over 10,000 photographers in the group, and we talk about SEO and online marketing and ways to get more clients from your website and from the internet. And the reason that it started was because I was finding so much bad information for photographers. And by the way, I'm still finding bad information for photographers on the internet about SEO and about online marketing. Now, there's some really good stuff out there too. And so what I want to do is be able to share the good stuff and be a place for people to be confident that the answers that they're getting are good, solid, reputable answers. And so that's the foundation of like why Fuel Your Photos started as a group. And then as I started adding some education options and articles, and I tried a free course and I tried a membership, and I've tried all these things, and what I found is that people really wanted done for you services. And we also offer SEO services for photographers as an SEO agency. And you can find information about that on fuelyourphotos.com/SEO-services if you're interested. But today, we're going to be talking about what we have found as an SEO agency and as someone who really studies SEO and what's happening in the industry. We're going to talk about what is going on and what has changed, because I think 2018 is going to be a little bit different than some of the previous years, and things have been changing kind of gradually, and there's not like any kind of like big major shift. But there are some things that are definitely going to change the way that SEO works going forward. They've already started in 2017, but some of them are going to be even more important in 2018. So let's start by talking about what has stayed the same, because not everything has changed, of course. And one of the big things that you have to understand is that, a lot of people are like, SEO changes all the time, and it's so hard to keep up, and you'll never be able to know everything you need to know about SEO, and you might as well just give up. And I definitely don't have that attitude. SEO does change, and we're going to talk about those changes and what kinds of changes. But at the same time, the fundamental principles of SEO stay very steady, and they stay the same for a long time. And what worked in SEO 10 years ago as far as techniques, they're probably going to be different, but what worked as far as a guiding principle is going to be very similar. So let's talk about some of those things. The fundamental purpose of SEO is the same, and the purpose is that Google wants to show the best results, right? Whenever someone comes to Google is a company. It is a for-profit company that wants to provide a service to users, and the service that they offer is they want to index the web and show the best results for someone who is searching for something specific. So you can go to their website and you can search for something, and they take the entire index of the web that they've created, and they bring back a list of results that match the thing that the person is searching for. And they're trying to give an answer that is the most relevant and the most helpful for whatever it is that the person searched for. And that if you understand that, the guiding principle that Google always wants to show the best result for whatever it is that the person was searching for, then you're going to understand the fundamentals of SEO that don't change. And so what you really want to think about when it comes to SEO is you want to think about how people search. SEO is about understanding the way that people search and then presenting yourself, your business, and your content in a way that really best satisfies their search. So if you understand what they're searching for and you can present yourself, your business, and your content in a way that satisfies that search, then Google is very likely to put that content at the very top of their search engine. That's always going to be the same. There's nothing that's really ever going to change that, because if that changes, then Google becomes irrelevant, and then you have a problem, because then they can't make any money. So they're always going to be trying to show the best results. If you focus on satisfying the searcher's needs, you'll always do well with SEO. All right, so that's not going to change. Now let's talk about some of the things that have changed. Okay, so I'm going to kind of talk about some general categories here, and then we're going to dig into some specific things that I really want to talk about, that I really want you to focus on in 2018. But here are some general categories that change and why things have changed. And when people talk about like SEO is always changing and what's different, this is what makes these things change. So the first one is machine learning. Over the past couple of years, especially in late 2016 and all throughout 2017, machine learning became a really big deal in a lot of industries, and especially in search engine optimization. And machine learning is a complex subject. I'm not going to get into all of the details of how machine learning works, but essentially what happens is that programs are created so that the computer can train itself on a model, on a set of data, and learn new things about how to answer questions. Or that's probably not like a great explanation of machine learning, but the idea is that the computer itself is learning based on the input and getting better and better over time, based on how people interact with the output. That's what's happening with search engines. So whenever people search for something, the search engine itself, without someone making adjustments, can understand, okay, did this satisfy their search? And if not, what did satisfy their search, and how can we change the algorithm automatically to show better results? And so, again, if someone's like really technical into machine learning, they're probably like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I promise we could talk more about machine learning and get into deep conversations there. But what you need to understand is that computers are getting smarter without humans having to have to manually adjust the algorithm. And so what happens is that Google can understand what people are searching for better than ever before. The way that Google can parse language and the way that it can understand the intent behind the way that you type something is getting better and better than ever before, because it's learning from all of the queries that are going in, and it's changing its model regularly. So machine learning has definitely had an impact on the way that search engines work. Processing power and speed has made a difference, because rules can apply differently in different markets and for different queries. So, a long time ago, one of the biggest challenges for Google, whenever they first started, back in, I think it was like 98, 99, sometime in that time frame, the problem was that they couldn't really store as much information as they wanted, and they had to get really creative with ways to search through the index to be able to return a result fast enough. Well, now some of those challenges have gone away because of computing technology and processing power and the affordability of more servers and the way that they've built out their infrastructure. And so Google can have these very complex rules that allow them to apply rules differently for, a major e-commerce store than they do to a small photography business. And so just because something works for one person doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for someone else, because the rules may be different for a different query or a different industry, or even in a different market. So Google is smart enough to be able to kind of segment the way that it shows results based on what's happening. Technology has changed on the user end. So mobile becoming so prevalent and more and more people searching from their phones, a variety of different devices. It's not just like a computer or a laptop or one type of phone. You have hundreds of different phones that people are using. You have all kinds of different screen sizes. You have all kinds of different internet connections. People all over the world are using Google, even in places where there's probably not very good internet connection at all, and they have to think about all these things. So technology on the user end has changed the way that Google approaches their results. And so thinking about things like security and thinking about things like mobile priority are parts of that. Another thing is competition. So people, your competitors, are getting better at the basics. They're getting better at being able to do the basics of SEO. There's more and more education out there. The website platforms that people are using are better. WordPress and Squarespace and Show It, and all of these platforms that are available to you are getting better and better. They're becoming more up to date. Like, they're more responsive. They're better on multiple devices. They're faster. So because of that, it makes it more difficult for you to be able to really compete against those people. That changes the landscape. That changes SEO. How people search is changing. This is something we'll talk about in a little bit, but people need to be less specific if Google understands them better. And so the way that they're searching is changing in a lot of markets. We're seeing that. Voice search is becoming more and more popular because it's getting better. So you can ask Siri, or you can ask Google, or you can ask Alexa, or whatever it is. You can say, just whatever you're wanting to know, you can ask it, and usually it gives you a decent answer. Because that's getting better, it's becoming more prominent, and that's going to change the way that people search. And then finally, have features and experiments. So Google My Business, Google trying mobile first indexing, the way that featured snippets have been being tested on the different results. Like, all of these things that Google is doing all the time, they're always experimenting to see, how can we make this a little bit better? How can we add some new features? Let's try them out. Even if you think about, like, Google Plus was basically a big experiment. And whenever experiments don't work, sometimes they stop using them. Whenever the experiments work well, they'll push it out to the entire market. So these are kind of the categories of things that make search engine optimization change. But let's talk about some of these specifics. So let me check. We'll take a quick break here and see if there are any questions that we want to answer. Let me just refresh my feed over here, see if I have any questions. And let me look at this as well. I have a couple of different places to check here. All right, if anybody has any questions, now is a really good time to go ahead and pop them in the live chat on YouTube, or to put them on the Facebook thread that I started over there. I'd love to answer some things. Where are y'all watching from? I see someone says that it's a snow day. I know we had a little bit of snow here in the south, and that has been really unusual. I didn't have any in Columbia, but in Charleston, which hardly ever gets snow, they were having snow today and yesterday. I'm not seeing any comments coming. Let me just refresh one more time. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and dig into some of these other things, but if you have questions, be sure to drop them in. Very cold West Palm Beach, Florida. That's unusual for it to be very cold there. Montgomery, Texas. Skipped in England. Nice. Amy asks, is it possible for a small business owner to manage their SEO? That's a good question. I'm going to say yes, it's definitely possible. It just depends on exactly what needs to be done. As far as managing your SEO, there's certainly, if you have a solid foundation, it should definitely be something that the small business owner or someone in the business is doing, in my opinion. Does blogging continue to be essential for SEO? Asked Terry. That's a really good question, and I would say that the answer kind of depends on your website. I've seen a few websites recently that came in for me to do a website review, and they didn't have a blog, and I looked at their site, and it was just that there wasn't much content at all. They could have added content through pages or other things, but they didn't. And one of the easiest things for them to do would have been adding a blog to add more diversity of content, to show depth and authority. So having a blog can be really valuable, but it's not necessarily as essential as some people want to think that it is, where it's like, if you're not blogging 3 times a week, you're not going to rank on Google. I wouldn't say that. You could definitely rank without a blog, but you're going to have some solid content, and a blog is one of the easy ways to do it. All right, if you have any other questions, be sure to type them in the chat on YouTube or over on Facebook in the thread that I started there, and we'll be watching for them. I'll take another break here to ask questions here in a few minutes. Let's go ahead and talk about a few things here. I'm going to talk about Google My Business first, and I'm going to switch over so that you can see my screen. And we're actually going to look here at Google My Business. We'll look at it for my photography business, which is, it's not fully optimized and set up, because right now I'm not taking new photography clients. But I will show you this because I have access to it, and will show you all the features. So there's a few things that I want you to know about Google My Business, especially recently in late 2017. There's some new things that have been available, and I want to show you a few of these. If you don't know what Google My Business is, be sure to go to it's business.google.com. You can just go to Google and type in Google My Business and easily find it. But basically, it is the way for you to show up on Google Maps in the featured section of the maps there. Whenever you search for anything local, you're usually going to get a map pack result with 3 results. If you want to show up in that, you have to have a Google My Business listing. It's basically just your representation of your business on Google. And so obviously your website does that, but Google My Business is kind of the built-in to Google representation of your business. Now, if you are confused about Google Plus for business, which I wouldn't blame you because it's very confusing. Let me just take a second here and talk about Google Plus. I think I have it somewhere else in my outline, but I'm just going to talk about it now. It's been a really confusing journey because Google My Business has not always been called this. A long time ago, I think it was Google Places, and then it went to you had to set up Google Plus for your business, but it kind of did the same thing. So Places kind of merged into Google Plus for a business profile, and then Google My Business came along, and Google Plus merged into Google My Business. So if you had a Google Plus profile for your business, and that was what was generating your map result, it's now moved over to Google My Business. I'm pretty sure all of them have now moved to Google My Business. Google Plus is not something that is important for SEO for photographers in 2018. And I can say that very confidently. I have not seen any photographers who their success is hinging on the use of Google Plus. Now, there are some really advanced techniques you could potentially use to maybe get your stuff indexed faster with Google Plus, but there's so many alternatives with sitemaps and just submitting your URLs. There's really not a great reason to use Google Plus for SEO in 2018. Now, if you want to use it as a social platform because you just like it and you have a following there and you interact with people, that's totally fine. But basically, Google My Business has replaced Google Plus as far as the entire business portion. And one of the newest features that they have is called Posts, and it essentially extends that merger even farther. So what you would do on Google Plus in the past is make posts, and they would show up on your profile. And by the way, you can still do that. And when I say that Google Plus is not important for SEO, I will say this. I always recommend that people at least set up their profile with the same Google account that they use for Google My Business, and that it exists with a cover photo and maybe a few posts, just so that if someone stumbles across it somehow, at least it points them to the right thing, to your business, to your website. But posts inside of Google My Business are just a way for you to give these little quick updates. They usually only last for about a week. There are a few different types, and they can have different durations, but most of these posts last 1 week. And the point of these posts is to you can actually read more about posts. There's little help articles everywhere. You can just search for Google My Business posts, and you'll be able to find it. But the point is to give updates about your business so that whenever someone finds you on maps or on the local results in your knowledge panel card shows that it will have a post in it. So like I don't have one here in my knowledge panel right now for Fueler Photos, but I actually should have put one up for today about this video so that you could see it. But these are just little updates. Usually I would recommend putting these up for, let's say you have a new blog post that you want people to see. If you have a special, if you have any promotions going with your studio, that's a great place to put this. But I want you to think about, how would someone find this? Because typically you're only going to find it in a couple of ways. And the knowledge panel card here only usually shows up for a branded search. So if someone's searching for your brand, why are they searching for your brand? Now, this may show up for other things. It may show up if they search for, let's say wedding photographers in Charleston, South Carolina, and they click on the actual the business itself so they can get more information. These could show up there as well. They could also, someone could be searching for like photographers near me or something like that. So there are other ways, but let's just say, in this scenario that someone is searching for your brand. Well, what kind of message could you potentially give to someone who is searching for your brand specifically? Well, why did someone search for your brand? Maybe they got your name from a friend. It's a word of mouth referral. And you say, I have a special deal for friends of friends. And like something like that, just this little creative thing would be definitely worth testing on posts. You might do something for a different scenario where someone was searching for, that a lot of people search for photographers near me, and you have something that's like a special deal for anyone within this radius or whatever it is. Like there's all kinds of little things you could try. And I've heard people who have had good success with these. I've also heard people who say they don't do anything. One thing I've heard in a lot of different circles is that the tracking that's built into them is not very good. And so you probably shouldn't trust that alone as whether or not these are performing. And if you really are advanced and you can set up some sort of, URL shortener that will track clicks from that little post, that would be even better. I'm not going to get into all of that right now. The main thing I wanted to show you here is that it is a new feature and you can use it. There are other things here as well. So one of the newer things that is also available is messaging. You can set up with your phone number so that people can message you directly from the post. Now, I haven't seen this working. So, I have it set up on some of my listings and I don't see it. Have never got a message from this. So actually, I can't tell you exactly how this works, but apparently this will send it to your phone if someone messages you from Google My Business. Again, I don't think this is something that's going to be used very often, but if it's another way that people can get in touch and it's really easy and you're interested in that, then definitely check that out. But here's one of the things that I also want to make sure that you are aware of. There's this new thing here called website, and you can actually set up an entire website with a Google website builder. And this is something that I've heard a few other people, and even in some other photography SEO or photography groups, people who are talking about SEO recommended that you do this. And I'm going to very strongly recommend that you not use this if you have another website. And that may change. So this recommendation, in January of 2018 is for a reason. Right now, if you set up this website, it sets up a free website for you, and it's very basic and simple, and you basically can put some pictures and some text and some basic information. But what it will do is automatically change the website in your Google My Business listing to go to this website. It'll take your other website out, and you're basically stripping your website of one of the biggest citations that exists, which is Google My Business. I've seen some people do this, and I believe that it was almost an immediate ranking decrease. I think it was one of the major factors for a ranking decrease. I would say do not use this unless you don't have a website. Now, if you don't have a website at all, or if you're using like Weebly or some like Blogger or something like that, and you want to just get up something immediately, this could be an option. You can connect a domain to it, and you can set up a website here directly through Google. It's free. It's responsive. It works. It's fast. Like if you just need something basic to put some information up, it could even potentially rank in Google. I haven't seen any yet that are ranking well in Google, so I can't tell you that that's something that would work. But I'm going to say if you have a website and it's already listed in your Google My Business listing, do not use the website builder inside of Google My Business. Okay, so those are the main things I really wanted to talk about with Google My Business. It was just the posts. It's a new feature, and it's definitely something that you should experiment with. And you have messaging, and you have your website. Just be familiar with Google My Business. Google My Business has become very important for any kind of local queries. If you're not using it and you're not familiar with it, if you're not like adding new things to it pretty regularly, like adding new photos or filling out all of the photos sections that are available, you may be missing out on some really key opportunities for ranking. So let's move on to the next thing. Let's check and see if we have questions again. Let's check over here. Okay, I've got to check in a couple of places. All right, we have some questions coming in, so let me go ahead and answer a few questions. Oh, we got some good ones. All right. I'm just reading through some of these questions. We have, what are the keys to marketing to different locations aside from alt text, similar attributes to images? What is a base level thing to look at doing? What if your blog is linked to your website but not on your website? Will that contribute to your SEO? With Squarespace, you don't really have an alt text option when naming your images. What can be done about that? If you have too much content on your web pages, would you say it would be okay to transfer some of it to a blog and link to the main pages? Okay, this is an advanced question. Armand's, of course. All right, cool. So let me see if there's any specific information about or questions about Google My Business. With Google My Business, if you're based out of your home, does that work? Use your home address, or do you find an offsite location that allows you to use their address? Okay, so this is a really good question. I'll dig into this just a little bit because I think it's extremely important in 2018. I did a test over a year ago to see the percentage of businesses in some major markets that showed up in the map pack without using an address, and it was only like 30%. So you can show a service area and not show your physical address, and you can still potentially show up in the map pack, but you have a significantly higher chance if you do show a physical address. So if you work out of your home and you don't want to show your home address, then I would say there's a couple of options. One, you can just deal with it and not show your home address, show a service area, and use other factors to really kind of reinforce the fact that you're a local business. So make sure you at least have a phone number and you have a really solid Google reviews, and that your website has information that is really likely to show that you're an authority in the area. So if you are in, like I'm in Columbia, South Carolina, if my website doesn't have an established presence in the Columbia market, like if there's not a way that Google can say this is definitely a Columbia photographer, then I need to show that address. The address is like the number one signal that shows you are in this area and you're a legitimate business. If you don't have that, it's hard for Google to say that you're a legitimate business that's located in a specific area, because you could just make up anything you want, right? So I would say, if you can't, then that's okay. Like figure out other ways to show your local authority. Make sure you mention your area and things that are important in your area. That kind of thing. Again, phone number, reviews, important. Otherwise, there are a few other options you could try. You could try finding a location that will let you use their address. I will say this. I would always make sure that the address that you're using is a place that can at least in some aspect represent your business. If someone just looks you up on Google, finds that address, and decides to show up at that location, they should be able to talk to someone or see some sort of signage or some sort of information that says, oh, I've come to the right place. This is definitely an address that is associated with this business, with this photographer. That could be potentially a coffee shop where you have a deal with the owner and you say, hey, I'm going to pay you $50 a month worth, of coffee guaranteed, because I'm going to meet my clients here. If you'll just let me put up my business cards on the counter and like a picture here on the wall, and if anyone comes in and asks, just say, here, take a card. This is Corey's card. Like you could do something like that. That could be legitimate. If they already use the address as their business, which they probably should, you may have to be careful about what could conflict there. There may be other legal implications as far as tax and business licenses and stuff like that. You'll have to talk to your attorney or whatever about that kind of thing, but that is potentially an option. Using a friend's house, it's a workaround you could potentially use. I don't recommend it, but it's something you could decide whether you want to try. I've seen people do it and be successful. But ideally, the situation would be that you have a place that can actually represent your business where you can meet clients in that area, and that address is listed fully on Google My Business. And if you're really serious about local SEO and you think that it's going to be a big impact on your business, it could be worth an investment of even hundreds of dollars a month to have that location that is downtown and central to the area that you're trying to rank for. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions that I can answer right this second. I'll come back to some of these others later. Let me just see here. There's some good questions. I just want to come back to them after I get through some of the other content. I'm going to try to go pretty fast through some of these other things. So next up, I want to talk really quickly about SSL, TLS, HTTPS, basically this basic level of security that has become the standard of web security. If you don't have HTTPS before your domain, this is something that you need to pay attention to, and you need to fix this immediately. Right now, going into 2018, it's becoming imperative that this is set up on your website. If you're still loading over HTTP, you don't have HTTPS, some devices may not allow users to access your website at all. Some may say the site is insecure. Some may show a big warning over them, you have to click advanced and then tell it, okay, I'm going to proceed even though it's unsafe. You could have that kind of warning, or you could have a little thing in the address bar that says not secure. If anyone is, I'm not going to get into the details of what triggers this right now with all the different browsers, because different browsers and different devices and different versions of browsers are handling this differently right now. So even if you don't see this, trust me, it can be an issue. You want to get HTTPS. Most reputable major hosts at this point will allow you to enable HTTPS very easily. They'll install an SSL certificate for you, and you'll be able to take care of that without any problems. It's pretty easy. If you don't have that option, you've got to consider whether the platform that you're on or the host that you're with is keeping up with technology, and whether it will be time to move to something else. So whatever your site is right now, it needs to have HTTPS in front of it. If it doesn't, you're going to have major problems. Near the end of 2018, I think it's going to become an even bigger deal for browsers. And I think my prediction is that eventually, maybe 5 years from now, it could be a long time, eventually Google will only show HTTPS sites in the search results. That's my prediction, but it's going to be a while. So this is not one of those things where switching to HTTPS is going to give you a big ranking boost. It's not one of those things where not having it is really holding you back as far as rankings. It's not a big direct ranking factor at this point. A lot of people are telling you, they're trying to upsell you on something, and they're saying, you have to do this for your rankings. And that's not really the point here. The point is security with the browser and the visitor. It's not 100%, it's not the only thing that you have to consider for security, but it is a standard protocol, and it needs to be done. So I wanted to really make that its own little piece here, so that you hear that it's very important that you have HTTPS, just to kind of give you a definitive answer on that. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Just going back to the address question, Elaine asked, what about a halfway solution address without a house number? If you can pull that off where Google will show that, it may be a little bit better than having just the service area. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes Google won't let you edit it to take away the house number. So it just depends on the situation. I would say you're probably better off if you have an address that someone could click directions and it would take them to a place where they could find you. That's the best solution. If you can't do that, finding one of these workarounds where you can maybe add some of the address, it may be better. If the address at least has the actual city and state or region or whatever it is, depending on your country, that you're trying to rank for, that's better than not having anything, I would think. but definitely worth checking out. Grant Young says Google won't let you go with no number, just tried. It depends. Sometimes people can do it. It just depends on the situation. It's kind of weird like that. Google sometimes let people do things and get away with things for a while. So if you can do it and it works, then maybe try it. Okay, so Armand's asked about the mobile first rollout should happen in 2018, and I think I have that here on my list. Let me see where I have it so I can go ahead and skip to that. I can't find it on my outline right now, but let's talk a little bit about mobile first rollout. I'm just going to talk about it for a couple of minutes here. Mobile first is just a way of Google changing their index and the way that it gathers information or prioritizes information. Now, it's a little bit confusing because of what different people are saying about mobile first, but I can tell you that the most authoritative people that I have heard have said that the point of mobile first indexing is not to like flip rankings on their heads. Like, they're trying to make mobile first very fair and similar to what we have now with desktop first indexing. So that being said, most of the people who are in charge at Google who talk about this, about mobile first indexing, say you probably won't notice a big difference in ranking whenever we start rolling this out. And by the way, I think they've already started rolling it out in some places. As far as like a major rollout, they're being very mysterious, but they say first quarter 2018, so we'll see. But it's definitely something to be aware of, that what's going to be happening is that Google is going to crawl with the mobile user agent as a default. And so they're going to crawl your site as if they were a mobile visitor, and they're going to gather their first information that way. Now, Google's not trying to like weed out all websites that can't be visited on a mobile device. They understand that there are some complex situations. I will say though, for photographers, there shouldn't be any reason that your site's not accessible on a mobile device and not easy to use on a mobile device. And so if you have a website that can't be used on mobile, this could be a really big problem for you. Even though Google says it might not be, I think it definitely could be in our category. Remember how I said the rules don't apply across the board in exactly the same way? For local businesses, if your site's not accessible on mobile, mobile first could be a big deal. The other thing is, if you have a separate site for your mobile version and your desktop version, if they're not just a single responsive site, then that could be a problem. It depends on what you are showing on the separate versions. If you're showing the exact same content, the same text, the same images, they have the same alt text, they have the same titles, everything is the same, it's probably not going to affect you very much. If you're showing different information, you just want to be sure that whatever you show on your mobile site is your prioritized content. You're not taking away important information on the mobile site. So don't do this thing where you're like, well, I want my mobile site to be clean and easy to use, and I'll just put all this text on my desktop version for SEO. That's probably not going to work anymore if you were doing that kind of thing. So make sure that the information that you really want to be applied towards your indexing and towards your ranking is present on whatever version people will come to on mobile. That's what you need to know about mobile first. We'll talk about it more in the Facebook group if it becomes a major deal where rankings are fluctuating a lot because of mobile first. At this point, I'm predicting that it's not going to be a huge disruption across all industries, but photographers who don't have mobile friendly sites or who have mobile versions instead of responsive sites may see a fluctuation in their ranking, and we'll just have to see what happens. All right, I know that was really vague. If anybody has questions, let me know. Okay, so Victor says, Creative Resort here in the comments says, switching to SSL has improved ranking and traffic for some of my customer sites by a factor of 2x in 2017. So that is definitely a good thing to hear. I haven't seen any data like that personally. I'm not saying that it's not true or it's not possible. Usually what I've seen is that whenever that happens, some other things were also changed. Performance was increased, or if you're going from like really, really bad to acceptable, then that can make a big difference in your ranking. So a lot of times people who don't have SSL are going from really, really bad to acceptable or to good. because they're making a few other changes, but just the simple act of changing from HTTP to HTTPS, I haven't seen any sites that I've tracked where rankings have changed from that one thing alone. But it's definitely possible. It's definitely worth doing, if not for ranking, for security. That's why you should be doing it for sure. All right, so let's go ahead and look back here and see if there's any other questions. I need to close something here. Do you know if you can have two businesses at the same address? And so the answer to that is yes in some situations. Here's something interesting. If you have two photography businesses at the same address, it's unlikely for either of them to show up in the map pack. And I've seen this on multiple occasions. There's a specific name for this update or this this dilemma that if you search for it, you can find it out there. But there are people who have tried this, and basically Google suppresses that information from their results, and they're unlikely to show it unless you like very specifically search on the map for a brand. So two of the same type of business in the same address that are separate businesses are unlikely to show up in the map pack. They're unlikely to do well in ranking for any kind of normal queries. If they're unrelated businesses, so like for example, I have a co-work here and I have this address used in Google My Business, and a few other people use it for like completely unrelated businesses, but it's a shared working space and Google knows that. It's in an area, it could be like a strip mall or something would be very similar where they know that multiple businesses are at this address. They understand that kind of thing, and you can definitely do that. But I would say don't like join together with other photographers. You may be able to join together with other vendors of, like a wedding photographer and a wedding planner may be able to have the same address listed and still be fine as long as they're not mixing the categories. So like the wedding photographer doesn't use wedding planner as their category. That's just a thought. You have to test it, but be careful with it. All right, one more question about addresses here. Key Moment Films asked, so does this mean you will use, if you use a P.O. box and two of the same type of businesses will do poorly? Will this apply to co-working spaces? What if it has a suite number? P.O. boxes, UPS stores, anything like that, those are not allowed. They're totally very clearly spelled out in the Google guidelines. You cannot use them. If you do and you get away with it, if someone reports it, they'll take it down. So if you think you're getting away, like, yes, you can, I've done it. Well, it's just because you happen to slip through the cracks. If someone reports you as using one, then you will definitely get removed. Even if you use the street address and a suite number for the P.O. box, like there's no way to actually trick them in a way that will sustainably work and that is within their guidelines. Co-working space, you can do it. That's just going to depend on, like I said, there's some situations where if they're the same types of businesses, you might see some suppression. So you have to be careful with that kind of thing. All right, let's move on. I have a few more things I want to talk about. This is getting really long. So I want to talk about a few more topics here, and then I'll answer a few more questions, and then we'll wrap this up, and we'll kind of take the rest of the conversation back over to the group. So let's talk about SERP features. So SERP stands for Search Engine Results Pages. This is probably one of the most important things you can pay attention to that has significantly changed from the beginning of 2017 to the end of 2017. I've noticed major changes in the way that Google is showing SERP features. So let's actually just go over to our screen again, and we'll just start back here so that we can see this. So I'll talk about a couple of really basic SERP features first. So the most basic, and one of the things that you need to know, is that Google has been experimenting with different lengths of their meta description. So this isn't technically a SERP feature in the way that I was talking about it, but it is a feature of the SERP being search engine result page again. Meta descriptions can be people are saying up to 320 characters now. Google officially says there's no minimum or maximum length for meta descriptions. They put that in their new SEO training, their SEO guide that they put out for beginners. There's no minimum or maximum. Like if you're using a tool that tells you your meta description is too long because it's more than 157 characters, that doesn't apply anymore. Like that's not a negative SEO factor. It's not going to hurt your ranking. It's not going to make your site look spammy. If you're not doing anything intentionally spammy, then your meta descriptions can be longer. Google is showing on average between 220 and 320 characters on most searches right now. So you can use more characters in your meta descriptions. And I would definitely recommend that you try this. And what I would recommend is that you have to remember that meta descriptions are used in more than one way. It's not just what shows up here. So if I were to search for, I'm trying to think of one that I've updated recently. I don't want to put any clients on the spot here. So I'll just kind of give some examples here. And remember, the meta description is one of the things that is likely to show up here in the snippet that Google shows, your title and then your meta description. Now, it doesn't always show your meta description. They may pull from other parts of your page to match the query more exactly. But if the meta description is written well, Google is very likely to show your meta description here. And the other kinds of things that can happen with your meta description, typically they're used by default as the OG description, open graph for Facebook. So if you share it on Facebook, the description will be used there. Same kind of thing on like Twitter or other social media platforms. So keep in mind that your meta description may be used in other places, and they may still be using that 156, 157 character guideline. So what I typically tell people is start with your important statement right up front and still kind of try to stick within that 156 characters, and then use the last part to really hook people and get them to click. Use the first part to get people to click as well. That's the whole idea with a meta description. But really take advantage of being able to add more context to that second half, and another 150 characters you could potentially add quite a bit more information. So take advantage of that. Other SERP features. So the basic thing you might want to think about is you have the knowledge panel. This is going to be, like I said, it's going to come from Google My Business. It has your address and reviews from around the web and photos and a map and things like that. But there's other kinds of SERP features that are showing up. So obviously the map pack comes from the same thing. So if we're searching for Charleston wedding photographers, this is a SERP feature. It's a map pack, and it's showing a map and it's showing people on that map. All right, so that's one example of a SERP feature. But here's what's really changing in 2018 is that I've seen more and more examples of sites sorry, hang on, some sound that was really distracting me here. So I've seen more and more examples of SERP features that are not map packs on local queries. So this is something that you really have to experiment to know what Google is doing. Now, some of the other like really basic SERP features that you might see images. So if I were to type in Charleston wedding photography instead of photographers, I might see images. I don't see them in this case. If I just type in, let's say like Charleston photography. All right, still seeing just a map pack. All right, so it depends on which query and what Google thinks you mean. So this is a really good way for you to understand what Google thinks people mean, what Google thinks the intent is for a certain query is to just go and type the query into Google and find out what kind of information they're showing. And the SERP features are a really telling feature that tells like what does Google think is the intent. And when you see a map pack, it means that Google thinks that you're looking for a local business. They're looking for a small business in the area. But sometimes you'll see other things. Now, I didn't get it to come up here, but a couple of other things that could show up. You could have images where it just shows like this, where you have images for Charleston photography. Sometimes this will show up at the top, at the very top. Oh, I think I know one that I found it the other day was engagement photographers. Engagement session Columbia. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I saw it for that. My goodness, it's not. Of course, on this video, it's only going to show me map packs. But I saw when I did this search the other day, I had images showing up at the top. And I've also done this search at times where my, let's see if we can get it to come up. Engagement session locations. I cannot get this to come up with anything other than, maybe if I do incognito, let me pull one up really quick. Still the same. And it may just be because I'm searching in Columbia. Let's see if I type in like Houston. Sorry guys, I'm not getting this to show me the exact kind of SERP features that I'm wanting. This is not giving me one because maybe one doesn't exist in this market. But the idea is if you are searching and you're not in South Carolina and you type in engagement session locations, Columbia SE, you might see a SERP feature that gives you this post that I made where it's 19 of the best places to take engagement photos in Columbia SE. And it just puts a list of some of these 19 places in an answer right there in the SERP features. And the same kind of thing could happen for like best outdoor wedding venues, Columbia SC. And you could just get an answer card that shows, here's a list of some of the best wedding venues in Columbia SC, and it'll have like a list of these things. So the point is, and I'm really sorry that I couldn't get some of these to show up right here in this video. I'll have to post some screenshots in the group later. But the idea is that you can get above all of the organic results with things other than just the map pack. It could be images, it could be videos, it could be these answers. Now with the answers, one of the best ways that you can get these answer cards right now is to have lists. Google really loves to show lists as answers. So I can actually show you one. This should really come up. This is a term that I use for Feel Your Photos, and oh look, everything is changing since I was looking yesterday. But right now, Groundweb has the lead answer card right here. But just yesterday, Dylan had it, and it was a list of SEO tips that were here. That's something that I'm going to work on with my guide and try to get this 0 answer card here. There's some other ones that I track, like WordPress hosting for photographers, and this one, it's funny, I just searched for this literally before I started this video to see if it would come up, and this is a different result. So Scott Wyden has this one right now. Imagely had it earlier. I've had it before. These can really change back and forth between sites. Google is still experimenting with these answer cards a lot. People can give feedback on them that could potentially influence how they rank, but the idea is that these little answers that show up above the organic results are a huge opportunity in many markets, and I've even seen them coming up for regular location-based photography terms in late 2017. It's the first time I've ever seen this, but I was searching for like maternity photographers in Houston or something like that, and instead of showing me a map pack, it actually showed me I think it was from Expertise or something like that, and it was showing me a list of Houston maternity photographers. And that kind of thing is something to really be aware of. The other thing is, if it's something like a list from something like Expertise, you may want to make sure that you are on that list, even if it's not your website that's getting this 0 result. That's what we call it. It's above position number 1, 0 position, answer card, SERP feature. Then you could potentially be included on the list for someone else who gets that result. So that's something to really pay attention to. I would really encourage you to spend some time, especially right now in this potential off season for a lot of photographers. Spend some time in Google on desktop and on mobile, just searching for the terms that you want to rank for and seeing what Google is showing, because there are some really interesting things happening with the way that Google is trying to answer questions right within the search results themselves, so that people never have to click on the website. And you may be able to take advantage of those opportunities and really rank above where you would normally rank. Now, typically, if you're not on the first page, it's really hard to get these. But sometimes you can do it. And sometimes making the post that is likely to show up in this 0 result is going to get you on the first page. So really be thinking about that. Let me see if there's any questions about these 0 results, because I'd love to see what questions people have about this. Try wedding photographer sample images. Yeah, that would probably bring it up. Caleb says, a watch SERP never acts as expected. Quantum SEO. Schrodinger's box. Let's see here. Search for terms I want to rank for. Do I need to be incognito? Can you see answer terms in SEMrush? Okay, so Amy asking about, when I search for terms that I want to rank for, do I need to be incognito? The answer is not necessarily. I mean, it would potentially be helpful. Try both. Try logged in to see if you have any factors that are influencing your results, because other people are going to have those factors or some factors. Try incognito, because that's going to be important. If you're not incognito and you have like Google Plus or Gmail and you're logged into your Google account, sometimes you'll get like those kinds of personal results. And like, don't get excited if you see yourself ranking on the first page because your Google Plus profile or your Google My Business shows up there or whatever it is. That's probably not what someone else is going to see. So definitely search incognito. Incognito is still only going to strip out like the data that Google has saved about you and the way that you search. It's not stripping out location information. So if you search incognito, it's still going to take into account the IP address and the location that it thinks you're in, and so it's going to influence that. But still, search incognito, search normal, logged in, use an anonymous search, go find a tool that lets you search from a different location. There's all kinds of methods you can try. Try all of them and see what you come up with. Armand says, can you see answer terms in SEMrush? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can you tell me a little bit more? Do you mean like the answer card that we're talking about here, the terms that show these answer cards? If so, yes, SEMrush, and there are some other tracking tools that will show you whether or not you take these featured snippets and what the term was that found them. So I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, but that you can definitely do that in the rank tracking section. SERP Stat is another one that's started to do that pretty recently that's more affordable. Let's see if anything else comes up here. Now use longer description, but his title still be the same length as before? Yes, titles should still be about the same length. They're typically about 600 pixels, depending on which tool you use and how you measure them. But it's about 55 to 65 characters on average. You might be able to push it to 70 characters in some cases, depending on which characters you use. Okay, so there's definitely some other questions here. Let me get through. Let me see what I have left in my outline. I know we've been almost an hour now, so I don't want to like keep everybody for too much longer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about two more topics, and then we are going to, I'll look through the questions one more time and try to answer a few more of the questions, and then we'll call this a day. Okay, so the next topic that I want to talk about, I'll just switch back to me talking here. I don't have anything I definitely want to show you on the screen. Let me take a sip of water really quick. Okay, so the next topic that I really want to talk to you about here are keywords in general, and a few topics that I think have maybe changed, or a few things that have changed about keywords and how they're used in 2018. So first of all, if you're still really concerned with like using one exact keyword because some tool told you that it gets more search volume, and you want to like use that exact match phrase and like stuff it into all these different places on your site and make sure that it's used at least 37 times and all these different places, like that's really not the way that keywords are working in 2018. That being said, I will say that some exact match keyword usage can still be beneficial. And if you use keywords naturally in the way that people are searching, or if you understand what people meant whenever they search for something and you use that and you reflect it back to people, that can still be beneficial, not only in helping you rank, but helping you get the click. So if someone were searching for Charleston wedding photographers and you use Charleston wedding photographers in your title or in your meta description or on your page, people can be confident that the thing that they were thinking is actually being reflected and repeated back to them, so it's probably the right kind of result. So using exact match keywords can be important. What I really want you to start thinking about is keywords as topics. And so whenever you think about a topic, there may be 10 or 15 or 30 different keywords that all fit within that same topic that essentially mean the same thing, that whenever someone types them in, they have the same intent, and those keywords should all be on your list to track whenever you're trying to rank for that topic. So I'm just going to give an example here. Let's say that you are a Houston newborn photographer. Well, the topic here is newborn photography, and the location is Houston. Now, those two things, whenever you type in Houston newborn photographer, Google may parse that and say, first, they want information about newborn photography, and secondary, the location should be influenced by Houston. Like, those can be parsed to be separate. They could also be read together as like an entity or like an entire idea. So Google can do both, and it can show both, and sometimes it will show that differently depending on the market and the query. Again, you have to experiment with that. But let's just say, the topic here is newborn photography, and your location is Houston. And if you are just going incognito and searching Houston newborn photographer, and like that's how you're deciding where you're ranking, or if you go to a keyword research tool and you type in Houston newborn photographer and you see that it gets 580 searches per month or whatever, that's going to be a misrepresentation of the potential for that topic, and you are going to be potentially selling yourself short by not using some of the other words and phrases. If you just used Houston newborn photographer 37 times on your page and you put it where it's not natural and you're neglecting to use some of the other words, then you're really shooting yourself in the foot. It's not helping you rank better for this one term necessarily, and you're missing out on all the potential, because Houston newborn photography, Houston newborn photographers, photographers in Houston, newborn photographers in Houston, baby photographers in Houston, Houston baby photographers. There's probably like 20 or 30 different ways that I could say this. Houston, Texas, Houston TX, like all these different ways that I could say this get individual search volume. And if you were to really track all of them, if you're looking in Search Console and see like over time, like how many of these have you actually shown up for, you would see that the number of impressions for the entire set, for the entire topic, is significantly more than just for the one keyword, even in the leading keyword. And the number of potential clicks and the number of visits that you can get to your website by focusing on a topic is significantly larger than by focusing on a keyword. So we call these keyword buckets in the agency. Like, we put these together and we show you, okay, here's the topic, it's Houston newborn photographers, and here are 20 keywords that we want to track to see how you're performing for that topic. So a lot of times the tendency is for a client or for someone in the group to ask, I'm not ranking well for Houston photographers. Why not? Like, why am I on page 2? I'm like, well, okay, it's not that you're ranking on page 2 in Google. Like, that's not enough. You have to think about the entire thing that you're tracking, the entire topic that you're tracking. And something else to really consider here is how different topics relate to each other and how optimizing for one topic can affect the other topic on your site. Because what we believe is that Google collects information about an entity and stores that from all around the internet. So if you are a business, you are an entity. So let's say that your business, like let's say we're talking about mine, Ablaze Photography. Ablaze Photography is a noun. It's a proper place or person or a business entity, and Google will collect information about that entity from all over the web. So it'll look at my Facebook profile. It'll look at Pinterest. It will look at all of my citations on all these different websites. It'll look at mentions. It'll look at backlinks. It'll look at the website itself and the content on the website, my blog posts, my galleries, the address. All of that information gets kind of stored back into what is indexed for this entity, not even necessarily for this website. So a lot of people focus too much on just SEO for your website. So it's like, you're doing everything to try to get your website to rank higher, but you really want to do things to make your business rank higher, your business entity to rank higher. If you're just focused on getting backlinks to try to get your website to have more authority, then you may be missing opportunities to get your brand to have more authority. By just getting mentioned on websites, Google can see that text and it can say, oh, look, Ablaze Photography appears on this page in the text without a link, but that's a mention of a brand entity that we know about. And then Google will say, do we know of a reason that this is connected? How does this relate to other entities? And so it's really important for you to understand this concept of a business entity. And if you're a photographer, you or your business is an entity, and Google stores information about your entity. Now, if Google is to say that this entity, Ablaze Photography, is a wedding photographer, and then I start offering newborn photography, well, how does optimizing for newborn photography take away from what Google knows about me being a wedding photographer? I'm not saying that you can't do multiple things or multiple specialties, or that it's not possible to rank well for two things, or Google gets confused just by adding multiple things. But you do have to consider the way that you add pages, the way that you add posts, the way that you add content, and how these things interact with each other and how it can affect what Google perceives or knows about your entity. And so whenever we're tracking for a set of keywords, we're tracking for a topic about Houston newborn photography, we're also tracking Houston maternity photography. And we say, well, if we change your homepage to rank for Houston newborn photographer, are we hurting your ranking for Houston maternity photography? Is Google thinking that it wants to show your homepage for this term, or is there another page on your site that could, it could move to maternity and also rank well? We have to look at all these things. And so if you're just focused on a single keyword, you are not thinking about SEO in the right way. You have to be thinking about topics. You have to be thinking about them in groups of keywords, and you have to think about how they relate to each other and how you rank for a variety of topics. Another big point about keywords is that keyword cannibalization is probably one of the biggest killers of ranking that I have seen in 2017. And I believe that will continue to be true, if not even more true, in 2018. And this is where you are using the same exact keyword as the focus for multiple pages on your site. And when I say as the focus, I mean that the title uses this keyword. It's in the heading of your page. It's in the text of your page multiple times. If you're using something like Yoast, the focus keyword, whatever you put there, is typically what you're trying to focus on. If you're getting green lights on multiple pages or posts with the same focus keyword, then you probably have a keyword cannibalization issue. And what happens is that you have multiple pages on your site that are trying to compete as the most authoritative page on this site for this topic. And so Google typically only wants to show one result per website, per domain, for any given topic. Sometimes they'll show more than one, but in most cases, especially for any kind of competitive query, they only want to show one result from your domain. And if they can only show one, but you have 40 pages that are optimized for Charleston wedding photographers, then how does Google know which one to show? And I will say that Google is usually pretty good at figuring out which one to show, but the problem whenever you have cannibalization is that you don't have any control over that, and that you're diluting the possibilities of internal linking and pointing all of that topical authority to a single page. You're spreading out you're basically just diluting the topic on your site. You're saying all of these pages are about the same exact thing, and none of them are the most important page on my site for this thing. So you pick Google. It's they can still figure out that your site is about this thing, and they might pick the right page, and they might just default to the home page, and it's really hard to know. So if you want a single page to rank for a keyword, which is what you should want, because that's typically what Google is going to show, you need to make sure that that page is the authoritative piece of content on your site for that keyword. This is a topic that we could have an entire training about. I'm not going to dig too much more into it right now. I just want to bring that up. Don't try to rank for the same keyword with all of your different posts or pages. And I think that's all I'm going to do for now. I had one other thing about keywords, but I'll leave that. And I have one other topic here. Let's just take a quick break to see what questions people have about keywords. Okay, let's see here. All right, so where should these different keywords be placed? On the text on your page and the alt text for images, weaving them into all the text in the pages sounds hard. So Amy, they're there are some places that it is important to get keywords that people are actually using. The most important place to get the exact match keywords that people are using in search is going to be in your title and your meta description. And don't do it in your meta description because it's a ranking factor. Do it because of what I said earlier, where it's reflecting back to the person what they said, and they believe that it's a good result to click on. That's going to be where it's most critical, because that's where someone is searching and they're saying, okay, here's what I'm looking for, and your result is saying, okay, this is definitely what you're looking for, please click. On your page, you should definitely be using those words or contextual words. When that just basically means other words that Google would expect to see on a page. So let's go back to the Houston newborn photography example. And if you use Houston newborn photographer in your title, you might not need to use it at all anywhere else on the page. Maybe in the alt text of an image somewhere if you can. I'm not saying that you definitely shouldn't, but you may not need to. I've seen people rank in very competitive markets by using the keyword, the exact match keyword, once on their site. I've seen it where they don't use it at all. That's very rare. But using it once, just in your title, and then using other words, so in using the word baby, and using maternity, using mother, using like any kind of words that really relate, using things other than just Houston, but using other areas, but using them naturally, not just like listing a bunch of areas in a paragraph. That could potentially help for like really small and uncompetitive queries. But the point is, you want to use those keywords naturally, and you want to use other related keywords naturally in your text. You're just trying to understand the topic. Whenever someone searches for Houston newborn photographer, what are they looking for, and how can I get that information on my page? As far as exact match keywords and how to optimize exactly on page, we could talk about that for a long time. Whenever we do things as an agency, we try to follow best practices and we test it and see what it works. But then we will definitely go in and de-optimize if we feel like that may help. I actually just had a client recently where I went in and took the main keyword that they're trying to rank for off of their homepage in 9 different places. And that's okay. And so far, since I did that, their position has only moved up. It hasn't like been a major spike, but it moved up 2 positions in a couple of days since I've done that. So it's not all about just like using the keywords over and over. I would be intentional about the words that you use, but the key is to understand the topic and use the words that other words that people are also using when they search for that kind of thing. Okay, so what else do we have here? I've always wondered about the entity and keyword buckets. That's why I was wondering, split off weddings. Yeah, I know we've talked about that a little bit before, Armand. Is Yoast still a good thing to use? Amy, that's a great question. I will tell you this. I don't use Yoast on my personal website, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing to use. We still recommend it for most of our clients because it's easy. It allows you to do the most important things very effectively and easily. Pretty easy to understand interface. I like it better than all-in-one SEO. I'm using the SEO framework on my site. It's essentially just the same kind of thing with a less beginner-friendly interface. But it makes it easier for me because it's a little more straightforward and just I can put stuff in quickly. Yoast is still a good thing to use. I would not get caught up in the lights on Yoast. I'm telling people more and more to ignore the light system on Yoast and to just put in like a single word, like put in photography, put in wedding, put in like one thing in there just to see if it's like, make sure you're not completely leaving out words. Check the focus keyword with like 3 or 4 different things just to kind of get an idea of how much you used it. Don't use it as like this guy where you have to get a green light. I would say that's a bad thing in 2018. SF Black 75 asks, so if we work at the same venue a lot, we should choose a different keyword for each blog post. I actually have a post exactly about that topic on the Fuel Your Photos blog. Go to fuelyourphotos.com/blog and look at the creative blog post titles post, and it talks a lot about that. Okay, so Amy says, I'm north of Houston in the suburbs. There are literally 3 within 5 miles of me. Should I include all those in my keywords? Maybe. That's a really hard question to answer. Caleb and I'm using Houston because we talked about it a lot here recently. And we understand the suburbs issue. We are debating about how to use those keywords on pages. That's a long topic that I'm not going to get into too much more right now. And okay. All right, so I have one more topic to talk about here. I'll make this pretty quick, and then I'll see if there's any more questions, and then we'll cut this off. So the last topic I want to talk about is volatility in the search results. So it's something that comes up a lot for people, and people ask, why am I ranking on page 1 today, page 2 yesterday, and it goes back and forth, or I was in position 30 and now I'm in position 50, and it's changing drastically every day I check. And I would like to just chuck this up to, it just, it happens. It's just every once in a while you'll see this kind of change, but I really am predicting that going forward into 2018 and beyond, we're going to see more and more of this kind of volatility. We're going to see SERPs that change very dynamically based on the day, based on the person searching, based on the query. We're already seeing more and more of this. I think it's going to just continue to be the trend where it's very rare for you to see the same results whenever you search for something one day and the next day. Now, Google knows that you want to see some consistency for certain types of queries. If you typed it in one time, you might come back a week later and type it in again to get the same result. They understand that. In those instances, you're probably going to see a lot more of the same anchors staying. I will say that there's usually less volatility at the top. If you're in positions 1 through 3, you're much less likely to lose that position than people who are on the second page. People on the 3rd through 5th page, you could swing 20 or 30 positions in a day and that'd be completely normal. You could show up on the first page for a few days as an experiment that Google's trying or whatever it is. This kind of stuff is completely normal. And so there's a couple of topics here, or a couple of things that I want to bring up. One is that a lot of people ask me, well, how does this person who's brand new rank above me whenever I've been established in this market for 20 years or 10 years, or I've been doing this for 5 years and someone who just started last month is ranking above me in Google? How are they doing that? And I will say that one of the reasons why new photographers are able to jump above established photographers is because of buzz. Google knows that, not Buzz Lightyear, that's not the reason, but talk. There's things going on in the industry. There are more people interacting with this person's Facebook page. This person is posting more often on Instagram. This person is hustling to get seen and heard in the community. They've recently gained a lot of reviews or backlinks all at one time because they just started. So, maybe they've been working for a year behind the scenes and they just set up their business and they just set up their website and they went back and asked 15 people to leave them reviews. They got reviews all at the same time. They've been posting every single day on Facebook or other social media platforms. And this kind of buzz and this kind of hustle is not usually something that someone who's been in business for 15 years is still doing every day the way that someone who just started. That kind of thing is really hard to measure. It's hard for us to see. You might look and say, this person only has 15 reviews and I have 150. How in the world? Well, maybe they got their 15 in the past week and you got your 150 a year ago and you haven't had one in a year. That kind of thing can make a difference. So this kind of the buzz that comes from popularity and from being active in your market, that is very important in ranking. As far as exactly how that works and what you can do to take advantage of that, I would say you just have to remember that you can't slack off with your online presence. You can't just give up. You have to make sure that you're consistent. So when someone asked me recently, how do I maintain my ranking on the first page? And one of the top answers that I would give them is persistence. You have to continue to make new posts that show that you're an authority. You can't just give up on, am I saying that blogging every week is important or you're going to drop off the first page? No, I'm not saying that. It could be 4 times a year that you make a new post and that would be okay, or a new page. It doesn't have to be a blog post. But putting new content out there to prove your authority, being active on social media, getting new reviews, getting new backlinks and mentions across the web, getting featured, getting credits, like all of these kinds of things. If you're not doing them consistently, and I don't necessarily mean that it has to be a specific number every week or every month, but if you just drop off the map and you haven't done any of these things in 6 months, then it's definitely something where the people who are consistent are going to have an advantage over you. So that's one of the things I would say about being persistent. It's not just get to the first page, forget about SEO. You may not have to worry about like on-page SEO and changing your titles and meta descriptions, but you might. Like being up to date with the fact that now you can have 300 characters in your meta descriptions, and making sure that your titles haven't changed whenever you updated your website, and like just being sure that your site is constantly in the best shape that it can be. It's like working out at the gym. It's going to keep you in shape. Same kind of thing for your website. Be on top of it. Be checking it out. Always look for ways to improve it. That's how you can kind of maintain that ranking. Okay, so there are so many things we could talk about. I don't have any more time to talk about any of these other topics that I have written down here. I'm going to answer a few more questions. Before I do, I did want to let people know that I had mentioned a course in the group about a week ago, and it is still something that I'm planning on doing. I was hoping that by today I would have it ready so that you could sign up and log into the course, but I just haven't been able to get that done. And I don't want to take anyone's money until the course is ready for you to use, but it is coming very soon. I'm hoping that even by Monday, it will be ready for people to log in and start using the course. If you're interested and you want to get more information about the course, I made a quick little page on my website. You can go to fuelyourphotos.com/course, and it will give you a sign-up form. It's just a name and email address. I'll show you here. It just looks like this. You just put your name in, put your email address in, click notify me. Within the next few days, I will send you that. Now, make sure to get on that list if you want to get the best price. I'm going to start this course at $99, and it will only be that price for a few days when I first launch it, and then it will go up to $149, and then eventually it will settle in at $199. That's the plan for right now. If you want to be eligible for that $99 price, make sure to get on that list to get notified about the course. Again, that's coming within the next week, hopefully even over this weekend. We'll talk about the kinds of things that we've talked about today and many more things. I'm not going to spend time on this video really going into what all we're going to cover in the course. I haven't finished all of the videos yet, so we will get that done, and I'll put more about that in the Facebook group. Make sure to join the Facebook group. That is the best place to keep up with all the things that are going on with Fuel Your Photos. And also, if you have questions about SEO, or you want someone to help you with your SEO, let me actually switch back here one more time. I'm going to click on services here on my website and show you that we do have 3 different SEO packages you can choose from right now. Even this will be getting an upgrade here in the next couple of months. We'll be changing our packages a little bit, but now is a good time to get in. We have some availability here, and these packages are for us to actually go in and do some work on your site and help you with all these things if this seems overwhelming to you. Hey, Caleb, come over here for just a sec. I'll also let you meet Caleb, my brother. He works here with me in the office on SEO. And we're going to go back to answering a few more questions. I'm like a 15-second delay, and then Caleb's over here. There's Caleb.
Hello.
We kind of look alike a little bit sometimes. Say hello, Caleb.
Hello, Caleb.
Yep. Anyway, I just wanted them to see who you were, that you're here with me, and that we work on SEO together. All right, so let me go back to the questions, see if there's any more questions that I can answer. All right. Caleb, don't miss it. Let's see here. Just going back here a little bit in the questions. Lullabias for Josephine says, I've seen a photographer that blogs only photos. Does this matter? How many times should I mention my keywords on each blog? Okay, so this is a really good question. I'll talk about this for just a minute here. If you're blogging just photos, it's probably not going to be extremely beneficial for SEO. Now, if you use alt text and you maybe have some captions or something where there's at least some description, these images may show up in image results for some very specific keywords. Maybe. It's hard to say. As far as SEO goes, they're probably not very beneficial. Because of that, I would say if you're doing that kind of blog posts, you probably don't want to worry about over-optimizing your title or meta description for that post for any specific keyword. I would absolutely recommend the post that I have on my blog. Let me pull it up and I'll show you here in a second. So we have, what should I do when multiple blog posts target the same keyword? And this is a really good post for even if you're not worried about that specific thing, but you want to know like what you should title your blog posts. This talks a lot about that. And there is a spreadsheet in here somewhere. I think it's right here. And this talks about ways that you could potentially title blog posts, tips for titles, things like that. So check those things out and see if that helps you. But I would say that, in general, it's not necessarily bad for you to make those blog posts that are photos only. If it's something that you're trying to put out there for clients to share on social media or just to kind of give them a sneak peek, make sure that you're not like overloading people with 100 images that are 2 megabytes each, and it's going to take a long time to download. It makes your site really slow, it makes your server really slow. Don't do that kind of thing. But if you want to put a blog post up that's mostly photos, maybe just like one sentence or something, it's not necessarily the end of the world. It's not going to kill your site and like make you rank bad. It's just that particular post isn't likely to be very helpful for SEO. See what else we had up here. Looks like Caleb was answering a few questions in the chat. I know we had some earlier. Okay, so keys to marketing different locations from Key Moment Films. Okay, so this is really tricky. And Caleb and I actually, I don't think you can, even if I turn this, I don't think you'll be able to see. You see our whiteboard over there? There it is. Yeah, it's all black and white. You can't really see it very well. But anyway, we were just talking about this exact thing yesterday up on the whiteboard. We were talking about like the difference between trying to be a wedding photographer, and my site topic is wedding photography, and then my locations might be Columbia and Charleston, versus a site where the topic is Columbia wedding photography. Like, these are two different strategies, and typically it's going to depend on the competition. It's going to depend on what Google's trying to show for these places, but it's not as simple as just like using the keyword for each location. Like Charleston wedding photographers on one page and Columbia wedding photographers on another page. It's not that easy. Typically, to really rank well in two major metros or two big cities or two cities that have a lot of competition, you're going to need to have address or contact information in both cities. If you don't have a location in both, then it's really difficult to really kind of take over a first page position for multiple cities. If you're talking about like I live in Columbia, and I wouldn't really even call it a suburb, but there's another town close by called Lexington. It's like 10-15 minutes away, and it has a little bit of search volume, very little competition. But if you were to like look at a phone book that comes in Columbia, if they do phone books anymore, whenever they used to have phone books, it would be Columbia or Greater Columbia / Lexington. It would be like how they listed it. So whenever it's something where, because you're based in Columbia, you kind of already encompass a suburb. If you're based in Houston, like Katy or dang it, I'm blanking on the names of all the big suburbs that we usually try to rank for in Houston, the Woodlands, and these other places that are like that. You can usually rank for Houston and also encompass those without having to like do a lot of specific optimization for Cypress or the Woodlands or whatever it is, because they're just suburbs. If it's that kind of thing, being intentional about having anything that you can about that specific suburb on your site can help. So having a site that's about Houston with some posts that are helpful for someone who is in Cypress or the Woodlands. Those kinds of things can be beneficial for sure. As far as like an exact strategy, I think it really comes down to, are you actually relevant for these areas? If so, show that, prove it. If you can prove it, that's the idea. The specific strategy is going to be different in every case for every business. Why are you relevant? That's the question. So if you answer that question, it should help you to decide more about that. Let me see what else we have here. Grant asked about, aside from alt text and similar attributes to images, what is a base level thing to look at doing? I mean, the most basic thing that you can do that is going to have the most impact is good titles and meta descriptions on your pages. I can't think of anything else that's more important than that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even thinking of any other like base level things. Writing down a list of questions that people typically ask and trying to find ways to answer those questions, that kind of thing. Lullabies for Josephine said, with Squarespace, you don't really have alt text options when naming your images. What can be done about that? There's alt text on Squarespace. It's just not called alt text. If you do a Google search for alt text on Squarespace, you will get a help article that will talk about how to add alt text to the different kinds of images and image blocks and image galleries. Almost all of them, if not all of them, have a way to add alt text. Armand wants to know about, if you have too much content on web pages, would you say it's okay to transfer some of it to a blog and link to it from main pages? Yeah, I think that's totally fine. I don't think there's really any difference in a page and a post as far as like how the content's going to rank in most cases. The only real difference is the taxonomies and the way that they're grouped together naturally on a platform like WordPress. But moving it to a blog post, if you keep the URL the same, it's totally fine. It doesn't matter if you change it to a blog post. Google's not going to see it any differently, except for the fact that it may now appear in an archive or a category or a tag. That's the reason why you would want to be careful about that. You don't want to end up with duplication issues. Most situations you're not going to really have a problem with that, but yeah, you can move it. That would be fine. Amy says, does the info you put into the knowledge panel only show up on what search terms are used? Don't know exactly what you're asking with that, but with the knowledge panel, typically you're only going to see it on brand searches or whenever you do a local search and then click to get more information about the business. And let me look one more place to see what questions we have. Over here. And one more place over here. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. Again, if you want more information about the course that's coming up, go to fuelyourphotos.com/course. If you want more information about our SEO services, you can email me at support@fuelyourphotos.com or go to the website and click on services and fill out the form there, or you can even check out there. If you want me to do a review of your website, if you're interested in services. Now, right now I have a backlog of like just general reviews to do, but if you're interested in services and you want a website review first, just email me. I'll be happy to look at your site and get you some more information about what we could do and how we could help. Hope this was helpful for you, and be sure to join the Fuel Your Photos Facebook group. Let me just see what the exact URL is here, and I'll give it to you so that you can go and join it in case you can't find it in a search. Usually you can just go to Facebook and do a search for Fuel Your Photos, and you'll be able to find it, but I'll put it up here. It's just it's facebook.com/groups/fuelyourphotos. There it is on the screen. So be sure to join that group, and we have lots of conversations about SEO. You can ask questions anytime there. I'm hoping to do more live videos and trainings in 2018. I'm hoping to do most of them inside the Facebook group. I just wanted to do this one on YouTube today to try it out and see how it worked. We'll see how that goes. But again, join the group, and I hope to be talking to you more this year.